Hi, all. Welcome back to my channel. I'm about to share two awful stories with you. One that I can't believe I even read, and the second, a mom who desperately sought protection that she never got. Both stories involved women either with a restraining order or trying to obtain one. But in both stories, it didn't matter because the evil they faced wasn't going to be stopped by a piece of paper, signed by a judge or not. I'm going to start in California, in San Mateo County, where a 25-year-old mother of two young girls was brutally murdered in the street in front of her home as neighbors watched helplessly in broad daylight. Police said that around noon on September 8th, officers in the area of Laurel Street and Magnolia Avenue were flagged down and told by witnesses that a woman was being assaulted. When they arrived on scene, they found a young mother, as they put it, obviously dead. And police were careful not to say the manner of her death in their press conference. But a neighbor who witnessed the aftermath told the news that she had been beheaded with a sword in the street in front of her apartment that her two children were inside of. Witnesses who saw what happened told police that the victim's estranged boyfriend killed her, then fled the scene with the sword. As they worked the crime scene, police said someone was able to contact the suspect on the phone, find out he was just blocks away from the murder, and they were able to talk him into returning to the house. A witness said he watched the killer return to the scene with two of his friends on foot, and police took him into custody. Apparently, when the story first broke, it was reported that the victim's two young children, ages 7 and 1, were in the house and witnessed their mother's murder. But now, sources are correcting that and saying the children were home but did not witness it, which I hope and pray to God is true. Police say the 1-year-old is the child of the victim and her killer, and the children were taken from the home by Children's Protective Services. Her father told the news that tragically, he found out about his daughter's tragic death online. He said the police didn't notify him, so he didn't know what happened, and he didn't go get the children. But now, he's trying to get the children back from CPS. He said he never liked his daughter's boyfriend, and that he's been nothing but trouble since he came into her life. He said when he found out his daughter was pregnant with his child, his heart dropped. News sources are reporting that the victim had a restraining order against her ex since last April due to prior violent incidents, and that the killer is a diagnosed schizophrenic who is known to have violent outbursts and wild behavior. But police did not go into all those details at the brief press conference. But they did say that officers were so disturbed by what they found at the scene that they're being offered counseling and support, along with the neighbors who witnessed the attack. Because police said the witnesses were in shock and disbelief and unable to help other than to run and flag down the officers. I can imagine. And the sword was recovered after a search of the area, since the killer disposed of it after leaving the scene. I haven't read any reports of the witnesses saying what led up to the attack, whether they heard them arguing or not, but the San Francisco Chronicle ran a story saying a friend of the victim told them she feared for her life and posted on an Instagram Live that her baby's daddy had put a target on her back just hours before she was murdered. Her father said he's heartbroken and that she was his best friend. He also told the news that he doesn't feel his daughter's killer should continue breathing, and he thinks the death penalty would be perfect for him. I can't even imagine what her family's going through right now. Her father described it as feeling like he's in a nightmare, which is how Tyranny Savage must have felt, a 35-year-old mother from Houghton Lake, Michigan, who filed for divorce from her husband on July 7th of 2022 after requesting a personal protection order against him just 2 weeks before, which was denied. Because a judge who did not know Tyranny or take her situation seriously, even though she wrote in her request that her husband suffered from mental illness, stopped taking his meds, purchased a firearm, was threatening to take his own life, was refusing to leave their home, was becoming increasingly more controlling, and she feared for her and her son's lives, decided that he couldn't be bothered signing a piece of paper to make her feel a little safer. So, he just responded to her application, saying that there was insufficient evidence of a showing of immediate and irreparable injury, loss, or damage, and to take it up in divorce court if she decided to file for divorce. Now, I'm not going to waste your time by going into what a self-righteous, uncaring piece of shit I think that judge was in this video, because really and honestly, granting her that signed piece of paper wasn't going to save her from what was coming anyway. So, as she was advised, trying to protect herself and her son from an escalating situation at home with an unstable man with a legally purchased firearm, Tyranny filed for divorce and requested a PPO again, stating that her situation was getting worse, her husband was stalking her, and I'm going to quote her and use the language she wrote. She wrote, "I filed for divorce today after dealing with my husband's affair. He became verbally violent and keeps throwing his fist like he's going to hit me and calling me a cunt, whore, piece of shit, and told me I will need a PPO because I have no idea what I just started. I asked him to be civil for a divorce and asked him to leave the house, and he refuses. I left, and I've been getting texts accusing me of being with other people, and he has now been texting my friends, threatening them because he thinks they told me to leave him." So, she was obviously desperate at this point. She knew her life was in danger, and she was reaching out for help, but none came. And 3 days after she filed for divorce, on July 10th, in the early morning hours, she was found dead in her home. Her husband shot her son, and her mother, killed them all, then took his own life. Two tragic stories of women trying to go on with their lives after abusive relationships, trying to take care of their kids, keep them safe, and they lost their lives. We've heard enough stories to know that a victim is in the most danger when they try to leave the relationship. Maybe it's time. No, it's definitely time for us to start banding together to protect the people in our lives who are crying out for help while trying to leave abusive relationships. Because a piece of paper isn't enough, if you can even get it. I'm not against restraining orders and PPOs. They're important for creating a record of abuse. But we're taught that they're an answer to stopping violence, and they aren't. They aren't bulletproof pieces of paper. They aren't knife or sword proof pieces of paper. And they aren't going to scare someone who has it out for you into changing his or her mind and leaving you and your family alone. They're records filed with the court that your life is being threatened and you need protection. So if anything happens, you've alerted the court of your situation in case law enforcement has to get involved. And if they work, great. But don't count on them to save your life if you're in a dangerous situation, because it may inform a dangerous person to stay away from you. But if they choose not to, they won't. And all you can do with that piece of paper is call the police when you're in danger. Unfortunately, that piece of paper isn't going to save your life while you're waiting for the police to arrive. That's on you. I hope you never find yourselves in the situations these women did. I'm praying for their loved ones, especially the little girls who lost their mother in the horrific attack in front of their home. Absolutely unreal. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.